Next on Currents News, we're in Ireland as a huge crowd packs a World Meeting of Families hall to listen as Father James Martin talks about a topic that has caused controversy before. The latest stop for Brooklyn Diocese pilgrims in Ireland taking to the cliffs to remember their Irish roots. A stunning story about how California firefighters were cut off from vital data at the height of the wildfires. Plus, the Good Samaritan who credits fate and his faith for coming to the aid of a woman robbed of something priceless. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. They packed the hall this morning at the World Meeting of Families in Dublin. An overflow crowd was on hand to hear New York Jesuit Father James Martin talk about LGBT Catholics and the Church. Currents News' Michelle Powers reports from Ireland.
Thousands of families are attending the World Meeting of Families, small ones, big ones, but also what's called rainbow families.
Our first trip to Ireland.
Meet the Duddy Burkes. There's Marianne and Becky, Finn and Emily.
But no different than anybody else. We're a family, we work, we go to school, we have dinner together. It's nothing different than having a mom and a dad or just a mom.
As far as they know, they're the only openly rainbow family or same-sex parented family attending the World Meeting in Dublin.
This is not a burden. It's not a sin. It's not something we have to figure out how to suffer with. It is a blessing that the church hasn't learned how to accept yet.
Marianne Duddy Burke, the executive director of Dignity USA, a group of Catholics committed to working toward LGBT equality, says she doesn't necessarily feel welcome at the World Meeting of Families, but still, she needs to be here.
By being here, we make the point that LGBTI folks are members of our church. We're members of the body of Christ. We're part of the us. If we weren't here, it would be folks here talking about them.
In 2015, Ireland became the first country in the world to legalize gay marriage by popular vote, and LGBT issues have dominated headlines since it was announced the country would host the World Meeting. In an opening keynote address, Archbishop Eamon Morton said that defense of church teachings must also take into account those living in alternative situations.
We shared our tremendous admiration and gratitude for the many families who do their best in complex situations to persevere.
According to new research to be published by the Government of Ireland, 1 in 3 Irish families no longer fits into the traditional definition of the family used by the church. Reports point to an ever-increasing number of unmarried couples with children, lone parent families, and families with gay parents.
You don't choose your orientation or gender identity any more than you choose to be left-handed. It's not a choice and it's not an addiction. Thus, it is not a sin simply to be LGBT.
Father James Martin, a priest of the Archdiocese of New York and an advocate for LGBT Catholics, gave a presentation on the subject, pushing the church to reach out more, saying it is, quote, shocking how little the church has stood up for the persecuted community.
By not welcoming, by excluding LGBT Catholics, the church is falling short of its call to being God's family. By excluding LGBT Catholics, you are breaking up God's family. You are tearing apart the body of Christ.
Becky Duddy Burke agrees. The former Sister of Mercy says people are lacking exactly that.
We need to be not excluded, not pitied upon, but to be listened to and valued for who we are as, creations of God.
Though both she and Marianne were excited to come, their children took more convincing.
Last time we were at the event, it was just really hard for our family hearing the comments. We're not our parents' children. That having a mom and a dad would be better than having 2 women that were being harmed by having 2 mothers.
I wanted to come to prove to everyone that to accept us for who we are.
The family hopes that by being here, they can send a message directly to Pope Francis. Though their spirits have been higher, they still have hope.
He's so pastorally based that I think if he had the chance to really hear about our lives from folks like us and from folks, LGBTI people from all around the globe, it couldn't help but change church policy.
In the United States, LGBT youth are 5 times as likely to have attempted suicide than their straight counterparts. The Duddy Burkes hope that one day, all families can make themselves at home at the World Meeting. This rainbow family says it is just the beginning of their journey. They will only continue to pray for change, but work for it. In Dublin, Michelle Powers, Currents News.
Newark Cardinal Joseph Tobin led a major panel at the Family Summit this morning, exploring the impact of the Pope's apostolic exhortation, Amoris Laetitia, on family life. National correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, talked with the Cardinal afterwards.
I think that what you heard this morning is a reminder that the apostolic exhortation is more than a footnote, and that it is really resonating in the experience of missionary disciples across the world. So I think the presence of so many people here from around the world, and their positive and grateful experience for the wisdom of the Holy Father is something to suggest to our brothers and sisters in the United States that there's something really there.
Cardinal Tobin said the Pope's exhortation and the family meeting are giving fresh direction to marriage. Currents News and Crux are joining forces to provide in-depth coverage of the landmark event, especially this weekend, when we'll televise continuous live coverage of Pope Francis in Ireland, starting Saturday morning at 5:30 on Net TV and lasting until the Holy Father's day is done. We will be back live on Sunday morning starting at 4:15. I will be anchoring along with Tablet editor Ed Wilkinson and Jorge Dominguez of Nuestra Voz. We're teaming up with Crux's John Allen, Christopher White, Inez San Martin, Claire Jean Gravé, and Elise Harris to bring you the very best in news, analysis, and expertise. Currents News' Tim Harfman is in Ireland as well, accompanying a large delegation of Catholics from the Brooklyn Diocese. Tonight, he talks with some of them about their Irish roots.
As pilgrims continue their journey leading up to the World Meeting of Families, some Catholics can't help but to think of their ancestors that left Ireland years ago. For Father Christopher Henyu, visiting the Cliffs of Moher reminds him of his father's American dream, to create a better life for his family.
My father would look out and say, next stop is America, next stop is New York.
Both of his parents migrated from Ireland, and Father Henyu says other Irish Catholics have similar goals as they reflect at the Cliffs, to put their family first.
You're looking at the end of this country, the end, literally the cliff here behind me is just kind of ignites the imagination to think, what's the next place? What comes next?
Family life is the focus of the international gathering that's taking place in Dublin. It's the world's largest gathering of Catholic families, and Pope Francis will be there along with hundreds of thousands of worshipers. Nearly 50 pilgrims from Brooklyn and Queens will be there too. Father Joseph Jude Gannon is one of them. As he visits the Cliffs of Moher, he also thinks about his ancestors. He wishes the Holy Father will revitalize the faith in his family's homeland, where only 30% of Catholics attend weekly Mass.
Hopefully it's a shot in the arm to help them reflect on their core values as a Catholic nation and how they want to go forward instead of backwards, and how they want to be re-evangelized.
As the families meeting continues, pilgrims from Brooklyn and Queens head to Dublin to attend the Congress and see Pope Francis. And as anticipation builds for the World Meeting of Families, I'll tell you what both pilgrims and Irish natives have to say about the Holy Father. In Ireland, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Beautiful countryside in the background there. Tim and Michelle will both have new reports from Ireland tomorrow. Stay with Currents News. Our special coverage of the family meeting resumes Friday at 7:30 p.m. And this weekend, remember, we'll have continuous live coverage of the Pope. Also, follow us on social media at the Currents News Facebook page and on Twitter at CurrentsNY. Pope Francis arrives in Ireland on Saturday with his prime focus on the family, but he's also going to tackle the clerical sex abuse scandal. Top-ranking Cardinal Pietro Parolin talked about the mission.
Journey of the Holy Father as a journey of hope, just to help the Church in Ireland and the family in general, just to retake a journey with more hope that we can really change and we can build a society in which the children and the vulnerable person are secure, are sure, and really the church can play its role according to the gospel.
Francis will meet privately with Irish survivors of abuse. About 50 new allegations of sexual abuse have been reported to the Diocese of Pittsburgh since last week's grand jury report. A spokesman said all are from prior to 1990 and go back as far as the 1940s. The diocese is taking all of them seriously and responding to them, according to the spokesman. The Pittsburgh Diocese also announced that Cardinal Donald Wuerl's name is coming off a Catholic high school. He had been Archbishop in Pittsburgh for 18 years, and he's facing scrutiny for his handling of abuse cases while there. The diocese said the name change was requested by the Cardinal. There's a lot more news headed your way. I'll talk with Brooklyn Deacon Phil Franco, a survivor of clerical sex abuse, and ask him what he would say today to the Pope. Catholics hold a vigil for Molly Tibbetts. They mourn her murder and pray for her killer. A monster hurricane so large the space station can't see it all at once. The storm is about to make landfall. And do you have a story idea, something happening in your parish we should know about? Because we want to hear from you. Keep this email handy, newstips@thesalesmedia.org. We'll be right back. Pope Francis is taking action to confront the clergy sex abuse scandal, meeting in Ireland with survivors after writing to all Catholics about the crimes. Brooklyn Deacon Phil Franco is also a survivor, and a priest close to his family attacked him. Today, Deacon Phil works with the Diocese Office of Victim Assistance, and he joins us now. Deacon, always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you
for
very
making the time. First, let me ask you about the Holy Father's letter. He addressed it to the people of God, meaning everyone. Now, the message did contain strong language. Was it what you wanted to read?
I would say yes, it was what I wanted to read, but it wasn't enough. In other words, what he had was sufficient. I should say what he had was good, but not sufficient. I would like to see more concrete steps for action. I would really like to see what are we going to do now? And he has universal jurisdiction. He can do a little more in terms of policy, but the individual bishops have to as well.
When you talk about concrete steps, something tangible, what would that look like to you?
Well, first of all, the wording he used was excellent. I should point that out. It was one of the better documents I've ever seen on this issue because it was, you could feel his sincerity. It was raw. But in terms of things that should be done, what are the policies in place to, I think, I hate to use the term, but punish bishops who are covering things up? What are the policies in place to dismiss bishops when necessary? Bishops have a lot of leeway within their own diocese, and how is the Vatican going to deal with that?
When he's in Ireland this weekend, I'm sure you know, the Holy Father is going to sit down with Irish abuse survivors to listen to their stories and provide pastoral comfort. If you were face to face with Pope Francis, what would you say to him?
I would say thank you for what you've done so far, but please don't make it just a PR attempt. Please continue to institute policies, really, that need to be instituted. There are certain actions for which a person can be excommunicated from the church by their very commission. Why isn't child abuse one of them? Why doesn't a priest or a bishop automatically lose their position or whatever for these actions? So I would like to begin with a thank you, but also end with a challenge.
Let's talk about what's happening right here at home in our own diocese. Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio, he's done a lot. He's done so much to prevent abuse and also to support survivors across the diocese. Is that example the best way forward for the church to emerge from the abuse crisis? What else can be done?
I think I would agree with you. I think Bishop DiMarzio has done a lot. I think Brooklyn has been really on the forefront. I've dealt with more than one diocese in this issue. And I don't mind saying that Brooklyn was far superior to the other diocese. The other diocese was almost stonewalling me from day one and continues to do so. So I think Brooklyn is a model to go forward in the way they've dealt with survivors.
I would imagine, and forgive me for being presumptive, that this is a process for you as a victim, as a survivor. Where are you in the process, and where do you want to be with regard to what the Brooklyn Diocese can do, what the Pope can do?
I'm moving forward in the process of healing, which has been wonderful, thanks to the diocese, thanks to family, friends, thanks to the Lord. I would like to be in a place of, where probably no one could ever get, which is total healing. Yeah. The concern is when something like this comes up, inevitably, you take a few steps back. I've been inundated with calls and text messages from, well-meaning people. Some people have come forward now. Some people who want to talk to me about their issues, and that's good, but it's set you back a little bit, in terms of your healing. I think the church needs to walk with us. Constant opportunities for counseling, constant opportunities for assistance.
All right, Deacon. Again, I can't thank you enough for your candor and for joining us and for opening up, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
In the Brooklyn Diocese, there are many important measures in place to prevent abuse. The Office of Victim Assistance helps individuals who come forward with allegations of abuse. The office provides counseling, referrals for therapy, and other resources. Every employee of the diocese, including students, undergo mandatory training to prevent and identify abuse. Bishop DiMarzio meets with survivors and he listens to their requests. And the diocese holds a yearly Mass of Hope and Healing, which they suggested. The hurricane is an angry giant. It's called Lane, and it is barreling toward Hawaii. The forecast is for destructive winds and torrents of rain. Natasha Chen is standing by in Kona, Hawaii, with the very latest.
Long gas lines, empty store shelves.
Trying to prepare.
Boarded up businesses.
We're breaking down a lot of stuff that's going to fly away because of the heavy winds.
Signs people in Hawaii are taking warnings like this seriously.
Be prepared to shelter in place, 14 days of food and supplies and water.
Much of the state is under a hurricane warning as the first signs of the storm begin to move in. Rain from its outer bands triggered landslides onto parts of a major road on the Big Island Thursday. Officials warn Lane could drop as much as 30 inches of rain.
We're extremely concerned about the potentials for inland flooding, landslides occurring.
Another major concern, dangerously high winds and waves as high as 20 feet.
Pretty much mirroring our tsunami evacuation protocols if anything comes to that point.
Hundreds of people have been bused to shelters.
FEMA has been hyper-focused on making sure that we're properly set up to support food, water, as well when it comes to commodities.
All public schools are closed and many state employees have been asked to stay home.
We're getting ready. We're prepared. The shelters are open.
All steps officials hope will keep people safe as they brace for the worst and hope for the best. In Kona, Hawaii, Natasha Chen, Currents News.
A stunning charge tonight that when the wildfires in California were raging last month, Verizon slowed to a crawl wireless information firefighters needed. It's called data throttling and choked off vital high-tech equipment from the firefighters.
Their ability to do that was significantly impacted by the data throttling. The speed that our plan would have allowed was reduced to 1/200th of the full speed of that internet connection.
Verizon now admits it made a mistake and should have lifted speed restrictions for the firefighters. Tonight, her hometown struggles to cope with the awful murder of Molly Tibbetts. She should have started her sophomore year at the University of Iowa this week. At her Catholic church in Brooklyn, Iowa, family and friends joined in prayer to mourn her passing and forgive her killer. Laura Terrell reports.
A somber service filled with songs and prayers.
Listen to our prayers.
As the Brooklyn community asks God why a vibrant young woman had to die.
Evil is irrational, so we can't really ever wrap our minds around it fully.
Dozens of people, including Molly Tibbetts' grandmother and the Poweshiek County Sheriff, packed St. Patrick Catholic Church in Brooklyn Wednesday, where Tibbetts was a longtime member.
She was a beautiful young woman who had a great life ahead of her, but she was also someone who always smiled, and I think she was very energetic, and that energy was contagious.
The pain is still gut-wrenching for residents like Mary Carlson.
Worse than tragic, just unbearable.
Father Close called for forgiveness for Tibbetts' alleged killer.
Our faith teaches us that Christ came for forgiveness.
Something Carlson says will have to wait.
It's going to be hard to forgive.
After the service, friends stood up to tell their beloved Molly memories.
And I honestly idolized her. In so many ways, I wanted to be like her.
Always saw the positive in everything.
I really want to believe in eternal life, so someday we will see Molly again.
Authorities have arrested an undocumented man from Mexico in connection with Molly's case. 24-year-old Christian Rivera is facing first-degree murder charges. Police obtained security camera footage from the area where Tibbetts went missing and identified an automobile linked to Rivera. Authorities believe the undocumented immigrant lived in the area for 4 to 7 years. Still to come on Currents News, a big believer in faith is being praised as a good Samaritan after he came to the rescue. A woman was robbed of life-saving medicine and an irreplaceable treasure. We'll be right back. If you have ever lost a purse or a wallet, you know it can throw your entire life off. You have to cancel credit cards, replace your license. Well, for one woman in Houston, losing her purse literally became a matter of life and death. That is, until a good Samaritan came to the rescue. Myra Moreno reports.
Everything I owned was in this purse. Money, credit cards, bank cards.
Including her cancer pills, which Maria Hager has to take every 12 hours. It was all gone in a matter of minutes.
That's the closest parking space because my parents are elderly.
It just so happened that Maria's father had recently been diagnosed with cancer as well. She was showing him around Herman Park because it was going to be the peaceful place where both father and daughter would spend time together after getting treatment.
This is the place where we're going to be every day, you know, whether it's a tough day, from doctor's appointments or treatments.
These small town folks would soon get a taste of the big city crime.
My fault, I accidentally forgot my purse was left on the floor.
Broken glass was everywhere, and the one thing she truly treasured was gone.
When I realized I lost that, that's when it hit me, how devastated this was.
Not long after the crime had been committed,
I just started walking on my lunch break.
Tony Valdez stumbled across Maria's purse nearby.
When I was picking up everything from the ground, I noticed a passport.
A big believer in fate and faith, Valdez knew he was meant to find the owner of the purse.
When I saw MD Anderson on the bottles, that's when it this isn't like a normal sickness, you know, this is something big.
After several calls, finally Valdez was able to connect with Maria. She soon broke down when Valdez mentioned the passport.
When she told me that it belonged to her brother who had passed, and I heard her voice cracking on the phone.
Aside from my cancer pills, this was the most important thing in my purse that I cannot afford to lose. I always promise I'm going to take him wherever I'm at. So he's in Houston with me while I'm getting cancer care.
There are indeed good people in this world. Maria says Tony has restored her faith in humanity. She's now working with Houston police to track down the suspect who took her cash and cards. That is Currents News. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Faublas. Set your DVR to record this program so that you never miss it, because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.